back to the Neo X Series training videos. In the previous video, we looked all about controlling our fixtures, our color and position information. And in this video, we're going to be talking all about effects on the console. On Neo X, you've actually got 7 different effects engines, different ways of approaching effects, depending on your needs. We're not going to be going into all of those in detail. We have got dedicated training videos on the console and on the YouTube channel that goes more in depth. But we will have a closer look at some of those effects engines, and we'll have a bit of an overview of some of the others. So I'm going to go and take this playback fader down. And what I'm going to do, on my bottom right of my main screen here, I'm going to go and choose the effects drop down, and I'm going to go and choose to open the effects library window. The effects library window, this gives us access to some kind of default automatic effects that are available for any fixtures you might have patched. So I haven't made these are just automatically generated for me. If you don't want to open a dedicated window, you can simply use the effects library drop down top right of the main screen. So you can just dive in there temporarily if you need to quickly access something. For the purposes of this, though, I'm going to be using the actual effects library window that I've just opened here. And you can see this is divided into different tabs. We've got intensity that we're looking at first of all. So I'm going to go and say 1 through 6 enter and set them to full. Those are my front light fixtures. And now I've got those selected, I can start to run an effect. So if I just run a simple sine wave across those fixtures, that's just going to start to ripple in the order that I selected those fixtures in. But as well as kind of a standard sine wave, we've also got things like flicker effects or lightning effects. So if you're doing theatre work, these are just perfect for just grabbing really quickly and applying on your fixtures. No need to work out what levels you need to set and program it manually. There is just a flicker effect that you can use. And of course, it's going to run in the order that you've selected those fixtures in. I've got a little green arrow to indicate it's telling me what effect is currently running. If I go and tap that, that's then going to stop that effect for me. We go back to no effects running. So if I choose that sine wave effect, you'll notice that your encoder wheels then become your effect controls. So first of all, you've got the effect's length. So i.e., how long do you want one loop of that particular effect to be? And of course, that means if you increase the length of the effect, it takes longer, so the effect is going to be slower. But if I go and decrease the length of that effect, I can start to speed that up. We've also got our offset encoder wheel on the console. You'll notice that these fixtures are starting at 0 and going to full, and that's because that information is included in the default effect. But if I increase the offset value, that increases the start level, the base level of the effect, if you like. So you can see that as I increase that, my fixtures are now only dropping down as far as kind of 50%. And this is a value in DMX values. It's an 8-bit value, so it goes from 0 to 255. So it gives you a great deal of control to set the minimum level that your effects go to. I'm going to go and dial offset back down to 0, though, for now. And similarly, scale is then the high level of our fixtures. So if I want to, I can go and adjust scale, and I can then go and set that to what I want. And again, just like the other parameters, I'm able to actually go and use our effect or attribute control options on the touchscreen to go in and choose the information of those fixtures. I'm going to click off of that and set those fixtures back to full. The stagger of our effects, if I just go and home those fixtures, homing it, that's clearing out any attributes that might be present. If I go and use the stagger encoder wheel, this can adjust the amount of delay between each of our fixtures. So you'll see there now that there's only a very slight ripple. The fixtures are almost synchronized. But as I go and increase the stagger, they start to chase one another more. You start to get more of a ripple across the fixtures. So I can continue to increase that until all of my fixtures are completely unsynchronized. Or if I want to, I can bring that back all the way down so that I can actually synchronize those fixtures together. So in the case of this, it is a sine wave with, in my case here, only 1% stagger and therefore those fixtures are pretty much in sync with one another. And this logic also applies to the other effects types. So I'm going to go and release those fixtures, and I'm going to go and say 31 through full. And this time I'm going to go to the position tab, and I've got various position effects. So I could go and put, for example, a figure of 8 effect on there. And again, just like we've had previously, we've got the effects length, so we can go and slow that down. We've also got the scale, which can then start to allow us to move over a larger area. So it's very much a case of just using some of the auto effects and tailoring it to your needs, really. And of course, once you've got an effect you're happy with, you can store that either as a cue, or you could record it onto a submaster. So in my case, I might just go ahead and tap record and tap on submaster 15 in my case here. I'm going to release that, and then at any point I can raise that sub and the effect will fade in and begin to run. So those are position. We've also got color effects in there as well. So various kind of auto effect colors, things for color that you can run across LED fixtures. So it's very much a case of just having a play and seeing what works for you. So we've looked at the effects library here, so for some kind of quick auto effects for our fixtures. But what I'm going to do on my second screen here is I'm going to go to my effects drop-down, and I'm going to go and choose the effects editor. And this allows us to view all of the effects that might have already been programmed in my console. So running down the left-hand side, I'm currently viewing all effects, but what I might want to go and do is just filter by profile effects. Now, profile effects, that is the term we use for actually the effects we were using in the effect library. And if I scroll down, I can actually see Submaster 15 is now in here. And I can indeed see the effect that we have programmed onto here. So automatically, when we went and created that effect and adjusted it and then recorded it to our sub, that was then pulled into our effects editor window, and it kind of lives in here. So if we wanted to make changes, we could indeed make those changes in here, and that would then automatically update our sub that we've recorded that onto. So these effects library effects, they're very much known as profile-based effects. But we can see here, or in this window, there are different effect types. So let's take a look at those in turn. The first tab is chase effects. So these are really simple step-based effects. So I've got one here that I pre-programmed. If I go and press play on that, that's going to start to run on my fixtures. And in that case there, that is a 3-step position chase. To create a step-based effect, what we can do is get your fixtures how you want them. So in my case here, I'm going to use fixtures 51 through full. And what I could do is I could go and set them in the color I want. And once I've got them in the color I want, I could then go ahead and, using my console on the top here, I could go and say record effects. And this gives me the option to give you a name. I'm not going to worry giving it a name for now. And we can also set information such as a step time and things like that. And I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And what I could now do is I could go and change the color of those fixtures, tap record effects again, and this time it automatically increments the step number. So I can just go through this process of recording in various steps. So I'm going to change the color again and record effects. And so this is just how you can record a really simple step-based chase. And so I can now go into my chase window. I can now see there's a blank one because I haven't given it a name yet. And if I go and click play on that, I can then replay that effect that we've just created. You'll see there that that's not really running at the moment, and that's because we haven't yet given this timing. So if we want to, we can go and give our steps some times, and I can even give some fade times in there as well. So we can start to fine-tune this information if we need to, and then we can start to run the effect. I'm going to go and stop the effect. So that's our kind of step-based chase effect. The next one down is a timeline effect. Now, timeline effects are really good for if you want to, for example, synchronize flashes to a sound effect or something like that. So what I can do is I can go and say add effect. When you say add effect, the console will give you a breakdown of all those different effect types that we can see running down the left-hand side here. And I'm going to go and choose timeline effect. And I can give that a name if I want to. I'm just going to go and say OK. That will then draw in for us here, and we've got the option there to click Load Audio Track. So if I click that, I can choose a audio file to load in. And once I've loaded that, I've then got lines. And each of these lines are different intensity behaviors for our lights. So what I'm going to go and do is I'm going to say that I want lights 1 and 2 for that line. Next line is going to be lights 3 and 4. And the next line is going to be lights 5 and 6. Let's keep things simple. And now we've done that, what I can do is I can actually click and drag on this window to decide when those lights come on. So for lights 1 and 2, I'm going to have them on there, and then I'm going to have 3 and 4 on there. I might then have lights 5 and 6 there, and a little bit more on 1 and 2 there, for example. And when I go and click play on those, you can then see that where I've chosen within that track length, those fixtures will come on. And you can see I've got them looping. So really ideal, as I said, if you've got a short audio track, you can load it in and then synchronize some lights and flashes to that very easily. The next effect type is profile. We've already spoken about these. These are the profile effects here, and as you can see, that's where you can go in and edit them. The next one down is matrix-based effects. So what this allows you to do is it allows you to run content across fixtures that are already in a matrix. So to be able to use this, you will need to have made a matrix first. Do go ahead and check out our dedicated matrix video on that. So on the right-hand screen, I'm just going to go and open the matrix editor. And what I've done is I've told my console that I've got some LED battens arranged in this way. If I want to, I can turn those LED battens on. There's actually a shortcut for doing that. If you want to turn on all of the fixtures that live in a matrix, hold Neo and tap Effects, and that will bring Matrix onto the command line. And so I can say Matrix 1 full, and that's going to bring on all of the fixtures within that matrix effect, so I can see those fixtures there. And that means if I now run my content across that effect, you can see where that preview bar is will be running across that content. So of course, if I actually had some graphics loaded in here, some video content even, I could actually be running that across those fixtures as well. Next screen down is our paint box style effects. Again, these are matrix based. So if I go to my paint box effect here that I've already pre-programmed, I'm going to play that, and at the top here, you'll get a preview of what's happening. So you can see here that I've defined that I want a transition. I've kept things simple. It's just red through to blue, and I've added these points onto this window here. And then on my top screen here, I can then choose where that content runs across the fixtures. Does it come from the middle to the edges? Does it go from out to in? And I can actually customize how that content runs across my fixtures. I'm going to go and stop that. And I'm going to go and just release those fixtures. Our next effects engine down is then a media effect. This actually allows us to load an audio file in, and that's really useful if you want to load an audio file into your console to then synchronize other cue lists and timecode your audio. The next effect down is a DMX recorder effect that allows you to send in a DMX input, and it actually allows you to record the incoming DMX values if you need to. And then we'll go back to the beginning, and this is the library effect. So these are the effects that we just see. If I go back to my effects library, these are the effects that we can see in here when we're running on the console. Now, we've had a play with running effects there across a matrix. We've looked at running effects across individual fixtures. It's also worth mentioning that we can, of course, run effects across the individual cells of multi-cell fixtures. So if I just go and say 83 through 86 full, they're quite bright, so I might want to just go and say at 3 to bring them right down. Those are my LED battens. So if I want to, I could run effects across the LED battens at the back of my stage. So rather than running across a matrix that I've already defined, I could actually just run across the individual cells. Now, I've already recorded myself a group. So if I go to my groups drop down, I've already got group 3 selecting the cells. So I'm going to use that group to turn those fixtures on. And now I've got those fixtures on, I might want to go to my color effects, and I've got various effects in here, and so I could start to run an effect across the individual cells of those fixtures if I wanted to. So I've got all sorts of various effects here, and of course these are the auto effects, but don't forget you could create something from scratch using the effects editor if you needed to. So those are our various effects engines that you can use, and of course it's all dependent on what lights you've got. So have a play and work out what works for your rig and your application. If I've got, for example, 51 through 55, turn those fixtures on. I might want to go and put them in a fly out effect. I'm then going to go to position, and I might want to bring them down stage a little bit, and I might want to go and also put them in a color. I'm going to go to color here and use some of the sidebar color controls. For more live event, for concerts or something like that, I could go ahead and stick that one on a fader. So I'm going to tap record and put that here. So I can then very easily recall that from my fader here. Or if I'm doing more of a theatrical effect, so I might want to go and say 1 through 6 full, and I might want to just put a slight kind of flicker, candle flicker on there or something like that. I could go and say record and record that into a cue. And the only thing you need to make sure is when you're recording effects into cues, just make sure that the effects toggle here at the top is enabled to allow you to record your theatrical effects into your cues. And in the next video, we'll go more in depth on recording cues.